That wouldn't be the international best-selling author, Vickie Molenda, would it?
Well, I guess it would be.
Goodness. Thank you for spending the time with me. I know you're very busy and very important now. And, the fact that you're giving a little bit of time to me, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. It's really good to see you.
Good to see you too. It's been fun. It's
It's
been,
it's been a ride, hasn't it?
it has, yes.
What do you
It was that week of the launch and everything was very intense. And then I had to kind of like, I'm an introvert. So after being like very out there a lot, I had to like retreat a little bit and now I'm coming out again.
Yeah. So I have to ask you, a little bit about I'm gonna just jump in and ask you about the message of your chapter because I want people I want everybody to recognize how valuable your message is because the running joke is there's a number of lawyers who are authors in this book and the lawyers like to say, oh, I like to geek out on this stuff, and I'm like, whoa, if you are running a business, if you have a company, if you even have a consultancy, knowing the message that Vickie has, understanding that is so key to your success. You might not know it yet, but you will at some point. So, which
Yeah.
is just a lead into to the message and the advice your chapter covers.
Right. So it's really just trying to reach out to anyone who has a business, works in business, just to really understand like how important intellectual property is and that they should really be, more interested in it. I know that it's often like you said, the running joke with the patent attorneys is, they're the nerds in the corner and that kind of thing, but they should be your friend. Like you should go and reach out to them and try to learn as much as you can. And really, you don't even need a lawyer for a lot of it. I mean, it's just like, marketing and finance, like you just understand the basics of finance without having to be a CPA, right? So, and just really, it helps a lot with just understanding what you need to do with your business and just really taking the precautions that, end up being a problem down the road, and causes a lot more problems if you had just taken those small steps, early in the growing the business. It makes a big difference.
So,
So
so I hang around a group of business owners, and there's a certain point where this becomes a topic of conversation. And I say it's usually around the 750,000, $1 million mark in one's business. But that's because of the data points that I've put together, whether it's a scientific data point grouping, I don't know. When do people start hiring you for IP advice and the expensive work of going in and protecting intellectual property?
yeah, so usually it's after a problem has already arisen. Like that's when they decide to come see an attorney, or they have a patent and they just come to see an attorney to have their, patent application drafted and get a patent on it, but they never stop and have that conversation and flesh out the understanding that, okay, maybe the a patent really isn't the best thing for you in this particular situation. We really have to understand, what your market is and is it a long-term thing, is it something that could be more kept as a trade secret because you have a longer protection that way, but no one really takes the time to think about that. They just have the, oh, I have an invention, I need to go patent it, and I'm like, and then they spend a lot of money for it and maybe they didn't really need that, or they don't realize all the things that they needed to get the best patent for their product, or they didn't come to the attorney early enough to help them develop it. So really they should go out to their attorney at like early in the process when they're in the middle of development so that they can help them with like what kind of tests would help them get a better, stronger patent if they do decide to go that route. And so, or another way they often come is when they find out someone's already infringing their patent or, copying their work product. And then it's much harder to go after people. It costs a lot more money. instead of taking the time to do things earlier. Um, so yeah, unfortunately, it's usually after the problem has already arisen and it's a big mess and you have to undo it all.
I love that. Like I remember sitting on this boat. I was on this weird yacht party, right? Like who goes on a yacht party? I was on this yacht party. It was a total, I don't even know how I got there. And there was this business owner. He was running like a platform for courses, for hosting courses. And he said every month he put aside $30,000 to use with his lawyer to go after infringement
Mm,
on his products and services. And I remember thinking, wow, if you're budgeting $30,000 a month,
yeah,
like that blew my mind. But there are businesses that, they are so easily penetrated or copied or infringed upon that like
yeah.
this stuff is real.
It is, and it's, and then the other part is when they're deciding to leave, to move on, like sell their business or anything like that, and business planning, succession planning, and they don't know the true value of their business because they don't know what they even have. They haven't taken the time to, kind of inventory or keep track of it as they go along, and trying to figure that out at that period of time. Usually under some kind of time pressure, paying lawyers to do all the diligence and, having to go and do all that legwork, which easily could have been just maintained from the beginning. Um, and then and then you've already talked about numbers at that point. And so you're like, okay, well, now we know what we have, but we've already talked about the numbers. And so we're not getting the full value we could have, or oops, I was, that really shouldn't have gone with that business because that really belongs with the business we're retaining. And, it becomes very messy and sticky, and trying to have to sort that all out, under time crunches, under pressures of, sales and that kind of thing. It becomes pretty Harry.
Yeah. So coming back to why this was the right time
Hmm.
for you to write and to submit and be a part of this anthology, why did it feel like it was the right time? Like, why was this a good opportunity for you?
Um, I thought it was a good opportunity for me to get out of my bubble. I'm in a very, attorney intellectual property bubble. And I'm like that, what I'm trying to do is get the IP message out to people who don't know anything about it. And so I needed to get out of my little small scope of people. And this was a great way to do it. I mean, they're all a broad audience, people who are interested in learning, because I mean, that's what this book is about. So it seemed like the right audience and the ability to get out and just kind of break through to a whole new group of people I hadn't interacted with before.
Yeah, seriously, like I imagine like when we all got together, right? Nobody knew each other. Nobody, I mean, we had a writing prompt, the best piece of advice you've ever received or would give to
Mhm.
people, something that you know is super valuable. And like by the time you get the book, I don't know that anybody knew what to expect, who else was in the book, what other stories were in the book.
Yeah.
But was there any particular chapter that resonated with you where it's like, oh wow, I needed to hear it because yours is so specific, so niche, and lawyers and business people and even average citizens who know nothing about IP can learn tons about it. But was there anything that you found interesting or synergistic for you?
Oh, you mean in the book?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, I mean, just even in the beginning, about having it be this time or this life. I mean, I feel like I've had like several iterations of my life. I mean, I started as a scientist, and I was a lawyer, and then, I've done so many different things, and I'm like, what are you doing at this point? And, not just this life, but at this point in your life, and making sure that it's kind of going with what you're doing. And it works in well because, when you're starting a business, you have to start thinking about what are all these things that I need to know, you know, um, and it's a different way of thinking and different information that you need to kind of learn and grasp and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
I would have put you together, like if I were mixing and matching and matchmaking, I would have put you together with Jill James, who is all about building a business, building, like a business model based on your value system. Um, like there's synergies for you two, and maybe it's your similar age group, a similar value system, just like really talented, multifaceted across a whole bunch of arenas, and you bring that to the table in your specialty.
Yeah, I haven't, it's funny, I was reading through it just as for like information for myself, but not really thinking about
You'll
like,
have to read her chapter and see what you
yeah,
think, because I think it's like, every once in a while it's like, oh, that would be such an interesting pairing.
and it's interesting. The book is really about like, it's one that you have to read, I think, several different times depending on when you're reading it. Because like I was just reading it as a person, reading it, just interesting story and advice. But if you go through and you read it again, it's kind of like editing, right? When you edit one time for spelling, you edit another time for content, right? This is kind of like the similar thing. It depends on what your mindset and what you're thinking about while you're reading it, to go back through with that specific purpose of like how this could interact with, what I'm doing work-wise, as opposed to just, me personally on a
Yeah.
personal level.
Do you have any vision yet? And some people have visions and some people don't yet, of how you're going to leverage this book, this chapter that you've written, and what we've created as a group, like a kind of big deal that it's an international bestseller. Do you know how you can or want to leverage it?
Um, I've started reaching out to people and kind of I've given them because my idea is to, like I said, just to get the word of IP out to business. So I've been working with my undergrad alma mater, trying to get into the business school. Like I've been working with their entrepreneurship program as kind of like a volunteer and advisor, but I'm really trying to get into the business school because my end game is, it should be taught in business as a course, just as marketing and finance, et cetera. So I sent those I bought those digital copies and I sent them to them and said, hey, here's my chapter on how, you can really add value to your business if you understand IP, happy to talk more about it or whatever, but here's a copy for you to read and just learn more about it. So I've kind of been using it that way and with other, clients and people that I know to say, here's this chapter I wrote. You might find it interesting for your business and your perspective. And
Yeah, I love that. I think that's just, I mean, it's low tech,
yes,
but it's so high touch
yes.
that, and like pointing it out precisely where it is super, super valuable. And of course, we both know it's all in the follow-up. And um, any thoughts of turning this into a solo book at some point?
I've already started thinking about it.
Oh, right?
Yeah, I mean, because it really was just an introduction of kind of like why should you even care about IP, right? That's the way I came at it, like maybe pique people's interest, like why they should start digging deeper. And then so my thought on the full book would be, it's kind of like a playbook in my head of, if you're starting a business, this is what you need to do from day one. And I'm kind of doing it now because I'm kind of launching another side project. Got too many things going on, but and so I'm kind of using that as a framework of these are the things I need to make sure that are in place. And of course, I'm working with a partner who's like the usual business kind of partner who's just like, we have this great idea. We need to start telling everyone. And I'm like, no, you can't tell anyone. Like, no, don't put the website out. No, there's so many things you have to do before you can do that. And so it's really, crossing your T's and dotting your I's before you like make the big launch and then the announcements. And then once you do that, like, keeping track of your IP as you go along and looking out for competitor IP and just what that means and how you can even figure out what your competitors are doing by looking at their IP, right? Um, even before they actually announce it or do it. And so it's that kind of thing. Like, here's, now that I have hopefully your interest peaked on IP, this is what you need to do as you like start your business or are growing your business, different phases of it.
It's like you're a corporate spy too, and I like you know where to look and all this indicia of different moves that people are making.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I think you're like a James Bond. You're totally cool.
Thanks. I think it's fun. I mean, that was one of the fun things I'd love to do is, when we're doing diligences on companies that we were thinking about buying, is like looking into all their dirt, right? Like looking, see what they did and didn't do, and that kind of thing.
I know. It's like getting the dirt. And when it comes time to negotiation, it's just a lot
Yeah.
more fun that way. So if you were to kind of leave this off with a message of what you would like people who are interested in your chapter to do or to think, like how you'd like to think them to think differently or how they might engage with you, like how would they engage with you? Where would they engage with you? Like, what would that look like for readers who are interested?
Yeah, I mean, so at the end of the chapter, we had those QR codes, and mine was for the IP strategy, and it really was kind of like that's like the overall roadmap, if you will, like the shortened version. And depending on where you are, there are certain points in that IP strategy that could be more relevant for certain people and not for others, just depending on where they are in their journey. And I'd be happy to kind of help them out and explain to them what they need to do wherever they are. And it's not like everybody needs to do every one of these 10 points because again, it's highly specific to their situation, but just learning more about that and what that means. And if there's a way I can help them with that and figuring it out, I'd be happy to.
That's awesome.